We are all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the HyperX Summer Series. Live on the Global SimRacing Channel, it's round number 2, the HyperX Milwaukee 125 from the virtual Milwaukee Mile. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside the booth tonight is Samuel Ryman, Sean Ambrose in the director's seat for what is looking to be an intriguing race. 4 GTEs racing on a short track. Nothing can go wrong, let's put it that way. It could be a fun one today, but these drivers are ready for a challenge. Let's take a look at your GSRC lap guide to see how to get around this short track for today's action.
Indianapolis, Daytona, Sebring, Watkins Glen, all legends of American racing, but cannot claim the title of the longest continually operating motorsports facility in the world. That distinction falls to the Milwaukee Mile, where we are today on GSRC. Having been going since 1903, it survived World War II by hosting local events, as it has since 2015, keeping that streak alive. This 1 mile oval is flat. Technically, the banking is at 9 degrees, but it certainly doesn't drive like it. Coming off the front stretch and into turn 1, it's a very shallow entry. You're trying to hit that apex and get around to the point that you can get back on the power again. That launches you off down the backstretch. Looking at Milwaukee from the top down, you'd think both ends are the same. Not so much. The entry into turn 3 is not as shallow and one of the better passing opportunities. Same thing applies to hit apex, get onto power, and watch out for that turn 4 wall. Another thing here is the very odd pit entry. It's one of the most challenging on any oval you'll find. It's well off turn 4 and more of a notch in the wall to get in there. Green flag stops can be, well, a nightmare. Everything except the NASCAR Cup Series has ran here. IndyCars of all generations, USAC Midgets, Sprints, and Silver Crown, late models, ARCA, NASCAR B Series, and NASCAR trucks have all had events here. Today on GSRC, the Milwaukee Mile rises up and presents a challenge it's known for. Who will take the trophy home in Wisconsin?
That was a look at your GSRC lap guide for the Milwaukee Mile. Now this is the time we bring in my co-announcer Samuel Ryman as we get ready for something unique today at a historic racetrack known for its IndyCar races for many years, as well as hosting stock car racing in its most recent years, as well as short track racing just a couple years ago.
Yes, thank you, Justin. Well, of course, one of the wonderful things about iRacing is you can take any car to any circuit, and that includes road cars to oval circuits and oval cars to road courses. Got one of the former here today, of course, with these 4 GTE cars at this 1 mile circuit in Milwaukee, and appropriately it is called the Milwaukee Mile. The turns are quite different to each other once you actually get down there on the track, even though looking at the track map here, it looks quite similar. The approach to both corners can be a bit different. 9 degrees of banking, which is barely any, and of course the big thing there is that means there's nothing really to help your car get through the corners. The tires and the car have to do all the work. Well, that means, Justin, that the tires have a lot of work to do, and with these heavier GT cars, tire wear is going to be a concern during today's race.
We'll talk a lot about the tire wear in just a few moments, but let's talk about how things have gone in the standings entering today's action. For those who missed the opening race, it was a heat race format to start, then a 15-lap feature race as part of the HyperX Daytona 100 on the road course under the lights. Aaron Morgan came away with the first victory for a feature race in series history. Tyler Graf, Ricky Harden, Connor Harrington, Matt Taylor rounding out your top 5 positions. Keep in mind, you can see how tight things are early on in the season, 16-point separation. Today, though, is a different format, and that's going to be key because there's no heats. It's 125 laps straight up.
Yeah, and that is a lot of laps. I think there's still something to be said for qualifying well here because, you know, the laps could click off in a hurry. And we have absolutely no idea what to expect. And that means, you know, if there's an early big incident, you don't want to be at the back. You could get caught up in it. As you see, it's round 2 or 4. So it's you can't really afford a bad race if you want to race for the championship. I'm convinced that our champion finished. You've already seen the champion's name. It was on that top 5 points graphic at the top of the show. I think that's a kind of consistency you're going to need to take this championship. At the very least, I think you're going to want to get a top 10.
100% agree. It could be a tricky race today. And having those points at the road course especially could be key down the line. Practice currently underway. You can see the times on the left side of your screen. Currently the separation amongst the drivers about just 0.3 of a second, in fact. Between the top of the pylon to the bottom of the pylon, it's Brian Jasek leading the session right now. Ryan Otis and Matt Taylor round out the top 3. It was talked about by George Anzardo, was speaking with him just a couple days ago, Samuel, that he expected Taylor specifically, who was one of those top drivers in practice, to be very strong here based on testing.
Yeah, so Matt Taylor, third fastest in practice, but less than 0.03 of a second off of Brian Jasek, who currently holds down the fastest time. 24 cars currently in the session with, unfortunately, league founder George Ronzaldo bringing up the caboose of the timing and scoring at the present moment. But that's only practice. Qualifying matters a little bit more, and of course the race matters a lot more than that. And it is now time to qualify.
Before we talk about the qualifying coverage and the weather, I'd like to ask you, are you interested in advertising with GSRC? Our channel's 1 million quotable impressions are a great way to get your branding seen by a diverse audience. Follow the link to the description to the YouTube version of this broadcast to learn more about the Global SimRacing Channel. Weather conditions today, just past noon in sim time, 78 degrees Fahrenheit. The air temp, humidity 55%. Wind not a factor. Starting track state 10%. Rubber built in the partly cloudy skies. That translates to 119 degrees Fahrenheit for qualifying to start. So high noon for these drivers to try and put in their fastest times possible. 5 minutes, 2 laps to try and put themselves into great track position here, Samuel.
Yeah, so not a lot of banking and a very high track temperature. I'm not sure what the highest iRacing's configuration, will let it go to. I think I've seen as high as 130 in the past. 120 is definitely up there. So here we go in qualifying. The drivers have 5 minutes. They all have a track to themselves, 2 timed laps, and make it count.
To answer that question, Samuel, we've actually seen sessions go as high as 150. If you set the air temp properly, the amount of humidity, etc. So it can get blistering hot here, depending on how the weather is. The driver who leads the session, Brian Jasek, at the moment, as many others get rolling. Paul Jenkins looking to carry momentum from a good race on Thursday on the Global SimRacing Channel. Like a few other drivers as well, though, are trying to look to get some good points. Like James Paulson, he's P8 in qualifying so far. Darren Ganji among the air drivers up towards the top. Speaking of top, Tommy Ryan, who we were keeping up with moments ago, just went to the top of the board with a 28.417 on his second lap.
Surprisingly, a few drivers there went fast on their second lap and their first lap. So tyre wear doesn't seem to be an issue over a 2-lap run. As we continue to watch the cars go around here, here's Dan Guerin. He was at our season opener, had a decent performance. Unfortunately, I don't think he really had the result to show for it.
Looking to turn things around, Anzardo, the owner and founder of this series, down the straightaway, his first time, a 29 flat. That is 0.6 off the pole. The slowest, Adam Young, who just bumped himself up to 12th in the second lap. But it's looking like here, once you build up enough heat into the tires, similar to what you have on a road course, actually, Samuel, you can put in a faster lap time of up to 3, 4, 5/10 of a second.
Yeah, so Tom Draylin is just going out for his first time lap now. Here's George Ronzaldo. Let's see if he can jump up from 19th. He does to 17th, so he's still going to have his work cut out for them. Bob Micah's fans, he just reconnected to the session, so that's why you haven't seen him go out for his qualifying time yet, having a little bit of connection issues, but fortunately time to get that fixed. Let's see what Dan Guerin can do here.
Dan Guerin, just before he went on that racetrack, by the way, had mentioned in our YouTube version of the comment section, 5 laps of practice put in for this race. 5. This is not the type of race where you want minimal practice with a lot of unknowns coming into play with these types of cars.
Yep, I'm a regular in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, and I can tell you we had a race here a couple of seasons ago, which has became infamous among Lionheart drivers, known as the 17, because we had 17 cautions. I did not practice a whole lot for that race, and I can tell you, without me, it would have just been the 15.
So, overall then, with many of these drivers, mind you see on track taking this opportunity to actually get more practice laps in, what type of race do you expect to see here, especially with massive tire fall-off expected? The estimates based on testing throughout the week have gone to as low as 15 to 18% on right front tires around lap 60.
Well, all of these drivers, or at least a majority of them, have plenty of experience in Lionheart-sanctioned races, whether it be in IndyCar or Retro. And of course, one awesome thing about Lionheart is, in my opinion, it is one of the most professionally run leagues on iRacing. And one of the reasons why is because you don't have free repairs. That is something that has carried over into the summer series. So these drivers know that if they wreck their cars, they're going to be in for a long race. So I'm hoping upon hopes that these drivers play it sensible at the start of the session, as we see Andrew Kinsella jump up to 11th and qualifying comes to a conclusion. But honestly, the answer, Justin, is I don't know.
A lot of question marks, and I think a lot of drivers and fans will be watching this race with intrigue to see who will survive the Milwaukee Mile and the HyperX Milwaukee 125. Let's take a look at how they'll start as they get ready for the green flag. The man who set the pole time today, Tommy Ryan, with a 28.417. He'll start alongside Brian Yazik on row 1. Matt Taylor, one of the favorites today, is in 3rd, with Ryan Otis starting in 4th. Aaron Morgan, the inaugural race winner for the feature race at Daytona, in 5th. Derek Ganji in P number 6. James Grahul in 7th. Larkamp in P number 8, making one of his first starts up towards the front this season. Tom Charlie in 9th position, and Tyler Graf looking to carry momentum from the road course at Daytona inside the top 10 to start, Samuel.
Andrew Kinsella went out at the very end of qualifying and jumped up to 11th on the board, ahead of Chris Lanini in 12th, Ron Hacker in 13th, and I have never noticed this before. Adam Young in 14th and Ricky Hardin on 15th have the identical crash helmets. I've never seen that before on iRacing, but it's just popped up on screen. That's interesting. Paul Jenkins in 16th, ahead of Chris Fowler and Bob Mikas on row number 9. James Paulson and George Ansaldo round out the top 20. Dan Guerin got some work to do after not turning any laps in practice. He'll start 21st ahead of Mike Rasmussen, Bart Workman, and Lionel Callisto did not turn a qualifying time.
24 drivers taken to the racetrack here, the Milwaukee Mile. Clarification given by Guerin, apparently a software update is the reason why he didn't get as many practice times, and in turn, at the bottom of the pylon, he goes for qualifying. This racetrack opened in 1903 and has hosted IndyCar Series events as recently as 2015, the Indy Lights, as well as the NASCAR Gander Outdoors and RV Truck Series, Xfinity Series, USAC Stock Cars, and most recently, Midwest Tour events for short track racing. These drivers are all set for a brand new challenge. 4 GTEs at the Milwaukee Mile. How will things play out? The second round of the HyperX Summer Series is just about ready to go. Tommy Ryan in control of the field. Green flag is out. We're underway.
A drag race between the front row of Tommy Ryan and Brian Yazik into the first corner. So we're going to go right at it, right from the get-go. Which lane's going to work best? Right now, looking like the low side. See some drivers even using the apron in turns 1 and 2. Tommy Ryan trying to clear Brian Yazik down the back straight.
Still side by side. Yazik, a very strong oval racer. Usually strong at the short tracks if you think back to the mid-decade last in the 2010s. But Matt Taylor already up to P2, taking advantage of Yazik not able to get to the bottom side. First lap goes to Tommy Ryan.
Yeah, so the low line turning out to be the best for track position right now. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being a bit kinder on your tyres and being up high as well. But we'll have to find out in the long run. Some drivers towards the back, I wouldn't be surprised if they're actually driving at 90% right now, thinking about that long run.
That's something that's going to be very prominent throughout this race today because, for one, if you pit under green, for example, that's a lot of time you can lose. 30 seconds estimated for the pit stops today. Most amount of fuel for these cars is talked about 95 laps, but the tires might pop before then. To keep up with how these drivers are using their times, meanwhile, you should go to GSRC.tv to keep up with their favorite teams and drivers in terms of live timing and scoring throughout today's action at the Milwaukee Mile. As you see on the onboard, Brian Yazik got back to the bottom. Already back to second. Here comes Ryan Otis now trying to follow the open door.
Yeah, so definitely doesn't look like you want to be up high early on. Looking up and down the timing column to see if we've had any big movers so far. I think Tyler Graf has gone from 10th to 6th. I think that's the biggest positive change we've seen so far.
+4, yes indeed. +3 for Mike Rasmus, who is a part of the Road to Pro campaign for Nexus Esports outside of Lionheart Racing Series competition. Callisto's also a +3 at the back of the field so far. The interesting thing about Graf, you see in that green and bluish car in the backdrop behind this orange machine, he's been trying to use the line under the rumble strips to gain time, the pit access road for exits. And he's been able to make it work. It's a line that sometimes may be feasible for the trucks, for example. Not a line you expected maybe today here for these cars. As here's the perfect example. Diamonds the corner, right under the rumble strips, gains about a quarter of a car length on exit.
I would have to check my IndyCar notes, but I'm pretty sure I've wrote down in the past on the IndyCar, do not hit that rumble strip. It spins the car out.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it loose, but my guess is that with the tire wear being the way it is and with these cars being as heavy as they are, you kind of want to try and induce oversteer into the car, and that's why Graf is using that line. And honestly, it seems to have been working for him so far. I'm surprised we don't see more cars doing it.
We actually had just behind all of this, by the way. Graf had Ganji, Larkamp, and Kahua try that line, but couldn't get as low as he's been able to. This is all in a freight train for the time being, about 6th on back. Many of these drivers just pacing themselves, it looks like. Now they're trying to dive to the bottom. That's Ganji trying to take away Graf's line. Can't make it stick. Trying to fall on behind. Actually pushes up the track again.
James Kahula looked like he had a bit of a run, but actually it's going to hurt him. He's now got Chris Lanini, I think that is to his outside, so they're running side by side for 9th and 10th place. Lanini's gone from 12th to 10th, so he's heading in the right direction.
Impressive pass there you see on screen though for Ganji. Was able to get a better run in 3 and 4, and that's one of the main things here in 3 and 4 is if you take the corner right, and especially get the right arc on the bottom line, you can get a massive amount of speed down the front stretch. You can also, in turn, if you're able to set it in hard enough on the bottom without burning up your tires, gain at least a couple tenths of a second to make a pass in the corner.
Look at the 2 different races we're starting to see up front here. The top 4 have kind of broke away and are running single file. Ryan, Yazik, Otis, and Taylor. 5th on back are all kind of bunched up behind Aaron Morgan. Now, Morgan is our winner coming from the Daytona Road Course, and of course, with it only being 1 race into the season, he's also our points leader. But right now, he might actually be a little bit of a cork in the bottle.
Yeah, the lap times right now, 29 flats, 0.3 seconds fall off right now for a majority of the field so far. See right now, Morgan pushing up a bit on corner entry. The car behind him is Ganji, already building up a run to take away the bottom side. Here comes the opportunity into 3. Ganji dives to the inside. And once again, Morgan out of the groove. And when you go up towards that line, any type of car here at this track, you're going backwards 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, so Morgan's lost 1 spot here. Now, I wonder if he'll just let Larkamp go by, because if he does, there's actually a nice little hole for him to fit in here in 7th place. and that, you know, that could stop a bleeding. If he races Larkamp too hard here, that might allow Tyler Graf and co to run them down.
Absolutely at this point, and may be a smart decision. See if he ends up going with that call. Right now, that fight, mind you, separate the packs out a little bit. The top two are separated by half a second. Otis is separated behind by an hour 1.3 seconds. Taylor is separated behind an extra 0.6 of a second. All the cars on your screen are an additional 1 second behind. So it could take a lot of time actually here, Samuel, and at least in my opinion, to catch back up. What's your opinion on this? To try and close back up here, especially with all the times being near identical from top to bottom.
I think we're already entering the part of a race where tyre management is becoming key. How well have you taken care of your tyres over the first 13 laps of this race? And the drivers who have been doing a better job, I think you're going to start to see them go forwards. We're already starting to see a couple of cars fade back a little bit. And I'm also noticing, Justin, some cars are starting to get sideways on the entry of a turn. They're trying to throw the cars in there and make it rotate on entry to help combat the understeer that I think is going to be picking up due to the tyre wear.
So what would you do to try and compensate for the heaviness of the cars and the handling, as Ganji has a problem? Ganji's got a problem. Something going on with Ganji as he's now pulled to the side of the track and is slow. So Darren Ganji from the top 5 going straight down to the pit lane. Was going fast at one moment, then the next, Samuel just backed off the gas and had something happen down the back.
Yeah, no, he never hit the wall or anything. He doesn't have his pit limiter turned on. He's running like 60 miles an hour into his pit stall. I'm going to guess it's some kind of software or hardware failure, maybe. Some kind of real-world distraction. I don't know. We'll see if he's able to go back out on track. No, he's disconnected.
So Darren Ganji, your first DNF with what may potentially be a hardware or software issue. Unfortunately for him, was looking very quick. That checked up a couple drivers and let others get into a fight now. This is Lanini diving to the inside up of the road. Able to make a pass. Also behind them, you see this now on screen on the bottom side. That is Kinsella making the move. Harden dropping back now like a falling stone as Mike Rasmus is already up 10 positions now.
Yeah, Mike Rasmus, a very fast driver, as you mentioned earlier on in the show. But I'm very impressed from what we're seeing from Chris Lanini. You know, normally he's a driver racing well, but normally racing well in kind of the midfield in Lionheart Series races. Although, granted, he's normally ahead of me. But here we are, seeing him as a front runner today. He's normally a driver who takes care of his equipment very well. He has low incident points. He normally goes long on the run sometimes.
Trouble, turn 1 and 2. Mike Rasmus spinning around. Caution is out, collecting Kalisto and a couple others. Hacker nearly walled into the fence as well. And that was an attempt to try and continue his progression upwards. Him and Kalisto were going with each other up the field. This was under Tyler Graf. Pushed up the corner, and around they went.
Nice save by Tyler Graf. Bad news for everyone else who got caught in that, but Tyler Graf got away unscathed, I think. We'll get a replay of how he pulled this off.
And you see massive save as Rasmus ended up getting hit by Kalisto as well as one or two others behind them to bring out the first caution of the race. And was about to bring up at that moment as well. Rasmus was one of your biggest movers along with Kalisto. They were following each other lockstep and just looking quicker than anybody else on the mid-run before all these pit stops and this caution.
This pit stop will not give the drivers enough fuel to make it to the end. The tyres will be a concern before then anyways. But let's see, Tommy Ryan leading them in, some drivers staying out. We'll see if they're just opting to come in the second time around. Who will win the race out of pit road? It looks like a couple cars not doing any tyres.
So electing just to take fuel on and get track position. That's Larkamp and Zardo gaining track position as a result. Everybody else taking that long 30-second pit stop we talked about or so. With the less amount of fuel they need to put in, some of the drivers able to go 22 seconds in the box. Tommy Ryan's been in there now for more than 33 seconds, though. Filled it all the way up to the top, maybe, as he's finally off and away.
Yeah, the drivers will have to be a little bit careful, especially the ones running towards the back, that they're not in their pit box so long that they end up going the lap down. Of course, these GT cars, pit stops are not as fast as an IndyCar. And if you do have to get any kind of damage repaired, you could be a victim of going the lap down to the pace car. I think everyone's escaped that this time around, but just something the drivers will have to be aware of throughout the race.
Now, the drivers who stayed out currently on track right now is Ryan Otis, Adam Young, James Paulson, along with Bob Micas, who is up in P4. Rest of the field either topped off on fuel like Lorkamp and Enzardo, or took tires. Under that caution flag period, Bart Workman ended up aborting his strategy call for this. This is the time to talk a little bit about the restart procedure here. The drivers will be double file when the restarts. Lap cars will go to the back. Lucky dogs are enabled if we do have cars follow a lap down during the race today. So that is one thing to bring up here in terms of that regard. So it's not like, say, an IndyCar race where you normally see in Lionheart where you might be pinned a lap down for the race. You have an opportunity, if there's cautions, precautions, to get a lap back if you are pinned.
Yeah, so that might be something that some of these drivers don't have as much experience with, and that could help benefit drivers who race over in NASCAR, in NASCAR on iRacing a bit more often. I know Brian Jarzik does a lot of stock car racing. Tommy Ryan, we've covered him in stock cars before. James Kahula, Ricky Hardin. So some drivers just sticking out there who might end up, benefiting from this more kind of stock car style racing, if you will.
Don't forget guys like Adam Young also racing the stock cars and Jarzik and company. So plenty of drivers who have at least some experience with the restart format with double file. That's been instituted in NASCAR since the early 2000s. But now at this point, I'm curious how this works out for the drivers who stayed out here, because there wasn't too much fall off, Samuel, but it was still 3-4 tenths a lap of fall off during that run on about 20 laps of green flag racing.
I almost wonder if some drivers are thinking that this race is going to start to have a different picture. We had a nice 20-lap run to open this race without any incidents, but I wonder if these drivers running up front are starting to think, now everyone's going to start picking up the aggression, because they're like, I guess we can do this cleanly. We don't have to mind our P's and Q's. If they do think the race is going to start getting a bit more yellow fever, the front is a place to be, because all the wrecks will be behind you.
Of note, Paul Jenkins has elected to park his machine. He is the second DNF of the race. Was around the mid-pack before then. Is the points leader in the Acura Throwback IndyCar Series action that takes place Thursday evenings, coinciding with some of the Lionheart events, and some of the fellow drivers like Chris Lanini are in said fields as well. But the field about to get back underway for the HyperX Milwaukee 125. Pace car is off. Ryan Otis leads them to the green flag this time, Young on the outside.
Otis, a very fast sports car driver, translating that hopefully for him to a very fast oval driver as well, because he has gotten a nice jump over the field. Obviously, if tyres are a concern, they won't bug Otis as much as the rest of the field, because clean air is kin no matter what kind of car you're in.
Indeed, and he's already ran away by more than 0.8 of a second, coming to 100 laps to go already. Adam Young up to second, but to get by James Paulson was able to back up the corner just enough to make the move. Bob Micas also able to shove Lorkamp up the track for position. The first driver on fresh tires is Brian Jarzik. He was still fighting for P5 on the racetrack.
Yeah, so with Gantry and Jenkins out of a race, the rest of the 22 cars still in the race, still on the lead lap and covered by 5 seconds, even the ones that have damage towards the back of the field, so it doesn't seem to be hurting them too much as a massive pack of 21 cars comes through the front straight. They're all, though, a little bit further back of Ryan Otis.
See on board in one of the fights, this is Jacek on the bottom side. Tires haven't come up to heat quite yet. Times are still even with the drivers who stayed out on the racetrack for track position. Looking to follow the car up in front. That's Mike is trying to take away P3. Paulson really tight up the corner. Jacek trying to build up the run. Down to the bottom side. Brian Jacek now looking to take away P4 in 1 and 2.
Yeah, so Jacek proving what new tyres can do. But you know what? This is educational for the drivers who have stayed out on old tyres. If you are going to do a strategy gamble, you might as well do it early in the race, because if it backfires against you, you've got 100 laps to make up for it.
Absolutely. As long as you keep the car clean, and that's the main key, I think, Samuel. Just keep the car clean, and you might have a shot. Yeah,
so far the drivers are doing a pretty decent job of doing that. I'll make a note that Mike Rasimas, who does have damage from the first incident, he is still on track. He is still with the pack, but he's stuck in 22nd position. Damage, I think, is affecting his handling a little bit, stopping him from moving his way back up through the field like we saw earlier.
You actually started about 25 car lengths behind the rest of the field. It's all single filed up at the front, but if you look far in the distance, you'll see absolute calamity for the drivers who are some of your leaders before they pit and took extra pit service. James Grahula was near 3 wide. He's been trying to dive it up the inside in turn 3 on a couple different drivers. Tommy Ryan, he's now hit the back of Larkamp to spin around, and the caution comes out, and Matt Taylor and Bart Workman go up to the wall with them.
Yeah, so 4 cars piled up there in turns 3 and 4. Not too much damage, though, to these guys. I think they'll be able to get away with it okay, but it does bring out our second yellow of the race.
And could see this almost coming. Remember, just a top off on fuel for Larkamp to get track position on the fuel. And right here, just lost the back end.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. Fortunately, all the cars kind of slid up high there and left the racing line open for the rest of the field. But yeah, just 4 cars spinning, minor contact. I think they'll all get away with it okay, because even though Mike Rasimas has been running at the back, I've noticed that Dan Guerin, who's also carrying damage from the first wreck, he is up there in 12th. So aerodynamics don't seem to be, it doesn't seem to matter too much if your car has just minor damage.
Mm-hmm. It is almost sort of like a stock car short track philosophy, almost, like, if that's the proper phrasing for that, in terms of how you can handle that. Some cars did pit, by the way, under this caution flag. Drivers involved in the caution. Tommy Ryan was able to avoid said caution. He came in for the pit stop. Rick Harding topped off on fuel. Ron Hacker also came in for a 10.6 second stop. Tower Graf, George Anzardo, Lionel Callisto among the other drivers who came to the pit lane, along with Rasmus, who is still taking time each caution to fix that front end. And I think still, though, Rasmus, you mentioned him being quick. He's good in a stock car. He is very consistent, especially on the longer runs. His specialty, mind you, Samuel, in stock cars is short track racing. There might be a chance we see the 68 up on the front. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the damage is hurting him a little bit, but now with this caution, he has the opportunity to get that fixed. I'm also starting to think that the drivers who have pit now might be at a little bit of a strategy advantage if we did go green all the way to the end, that they should be able to make it on fuel. However, I'm also thinking on the flip side of a coin, if we do get, I don't know, 5 or 6 cautions in this race, how much can these drivers stretch fuel? Could some drivers actually make it to the end without pitting at all?
Might be a little bit tight in theory, but there's the possibility there are only a couple drivers who have not pit at all this race. Otis, Young, Mikas, and Paulson. are the only drivers who have not come down at least once in this race to the pit lane. Everybody else has come down for service for fuel only, for tires, etc. Unfortunately, one of the favorites for this race tonight, Matt Taylor, is now your third DNF of the race. Lark Campbell also loses at least a lap, getting repairs to his car. 92 to go, coming to 91 to go this time by. So, overall at this point, what's going through your head as a driver knowing that we started with that long green flag run, but now it's kind of getting towards that caution precautions point once again?
Yeah, there's tons of different strategies out here, and there's no telling which one's going to play out. You know, it all depends on how many cautions we get and when they fall. The drivers at the front, I think, would be quite happy with a wreckfest. They'll be able to save fuel and keep their cars in clean condition while everyone behind is struggling. Whereas the drivers at the back, I think they want to see this thing go green and run long, because they might be able to make it to the end on fuel, and they'll have fresher tires, which might help them in the long run.
We're about to see how things play out here in just a few moments or so as we come across the stripe. They'll double them up this time. 1 to go. Ryan Otis in the lead. Adam Young up to second. Yazik is up to third. Mike is to fourth. Ronnie up the top 6 are Morgan and Lanini. Kinsella along with Paulson inside the top 8. Kurhua up to about 9th. And Chris Fowler is inside the top 10. Keep in mind, Paulson, one of the biggest movers so far, but partly on strategy, plus 11. Dan Guerin, you talked about him, is plus 10 after having minimal practice time in this race. Has already had 2 pit stops in this race.
Yeah, and he's carrying a little bit of damage, but as you mentioned, up there in the top 10, so doesn't seem to be hurting him too much. That could bode well for the rest of the drivers in this race, letting them know that they can get roughed up a bit, but still be competitive.
90 laps to go this time by. Pace car ready to drop off. As you may have noticed, the restart box very tiny. Pace car off. The second it launches, the green flag goes. Ryan Otis times it up near perfectly and pulls away by 4 car lengths into turn 1.
There was one driver towards the back there that went straight from the top to the bottom. I think it might have been Tyler Graf, and who can blame him? But that definitely seems to be the preferred lane during this race.
Already Yazik up to second. Here comes Micus opening up the freight train underneath Young. Next car up, Aaron Morgan. Look who's coming up on the bottom side too. That's James Gerhula in the lime green and lime yellow machine, fighting with Chris Lanini for 6th, as he's really powering it hard in the corners.
Loving seeing Micus up here in 3rd place. He used to be my teammate over Controlled Chaos. No longer in the IndyCar Series because he caused a couple too many incidents last season. I think he wants to prove a statement in this series that he deserves to be back up here with the top guys, running in 3rd place, doing a good job of that so far.
He has kept the car very clean so far as well, as we look on board with Kurhua. You can see though the way some of these cars are handling. Kurhua feels like he can carry more speed almost, it seems, in the apex. And if you listen to the motor, they're actually shifting a ton around this racetrack. 2 to 3 gear shifts per straightaway.
That's not too different to the IndyCar approach in this car. We've got a battle for 4th place with Aaron Morgan underneath Adam Young. Give a shout out to our fellow GSRC commentator Adam Young, running up here in the top 5, although fading back a little bit on the outside now. Doing better than how we did at Daytona. I believe he was one of the cars called up in the turn 1 wreck right at the start of the race there.
Yeah, Young making the strategy work fairly well so far, giving lots of space to everybody else. Kinsella now goes underneath them. Lanini now next up. Races Samuel. He usually likes to Dardo among the cars involved. So on Lionel Kalisto's front end, he wasn't clear.
Yeah, and Ron Hacker's the one who ends up pointing backwards here as we get a replay here. So yeah, wasn't clear. Goes for a spin, goes for a ride. No major contact with the wall, but obviously the yellow's going to fly.
Here's an onboard with Hacker.
So Kalisto obviously gets a piece of a wall there. I think George and Zoldo might have got away with that. Oh, pit road is open and Brian Otis is coming in. So even with all these cautions, he realizes he's not going to make it to the end on fuel and is electing to come in for his pit stop now. I'm not really sure why he's doing this. His strategy seemed to be working all right. You know, he will still lead in the race, but there you go. He's going to make his pit stop, and my guess is this will be maybe his only stop. Maybe he'll have one later in the race too.
Many drivers actually came to pit. Ryan along with them, Morgan, Drelling, Nalini, Hacker, Yun, Fowler, Paulson, Zardo, Workman, Kalisto among the drivers in the pit lane for service. Morgan the first out of the lane with a 14.9. Otis a 22.9 out of the pit lane. Also, Paulson with a 21-second pit stop. Adam Yun 24 seconds. Majority of the rest of the field in the 34 to 35-second bracket. And this almost is starting to feel a little bit close to home. For those who do not know, outside of broadcast, race from time to time these days in a lot of the stock car races, Samuel, and this is something where on the short tracks, it's common, honestly. You expect caution precautions, and you'll see waves of pit stops staggered out, it seems, on those tracks. We're seeing the same already tonight here as we get to 83 to go.
A couple cars still in pits there, going to get caught a lap down. Not all the way to the end of a race, but I think for the middle portion of this race, Justin, I think we're going to see Brian Jarzyk controlling the field. He's on fairly fresh tyres. He pit a couple of laps ago. He has plenty of experience in stock cars, and he's very fast in them, so he knows how to get around an oval track leading everyone else. And I think with these cautions, he should be able to make it to the end on fuel. That being said, the way this race is going, I definitely anticipate more yellows. I definitely anticipate tyre wear. So I think he will be in for another stop at some point. But right now, Jarzyk's in the lead, and I wouldn't be surprised if he holds it for a little while.
I wouldn't be surprised either, especially with the way he's been able to rotate that car. Only one driver, by the way, has not pit this entire race. It's that blue and red machine. But Mike has yet to come down for any service in this race. How long do you try and stretch it out if it continues to stay this type of race here, Samuel, if you're in Bob's shoes?
Well, I do remember one race we had in the Lionheart Retro Series at, it wasn't Milwaukee, it was at Gateway, I believe, at a similar circuit, where Bob Mikus won by stretching his fuel right to the middle of a race, pitting in the middle of a race, and then stretching the fuel to the end of a race. I remember that race very well because another guy tried a similar strategy and fell short in second place. And right now he's talking on the microphone and Bob Mikus is out there racing.
Yes, indeed.
That would be myself, not you, Justin.
Yes, I'm aware. Yes, I'm aware, sir.
You remember the race as well when you finished second.
About to double them up at this point, and just curious, if you were on the racetrack, where do you think you would be running in this type of race right now?
At the back. We're down to 18 cars left on the lead lap. I'm one of those who, if I have absolutely no clue what's going to happen, I normally try and play it safe the first half of a race. I think there's some drivers towards the back that we haven't mentioned at all that are just keeping it clean, playing the long game, and we'll start to talk about them in the closing laps.
Of note, Anzardo and Kalisto have not come out of the pits with their damage repairs at this point. In fact, Anzardo has 8 minutes of required repairs, which is the reasoning why he has not come out of the pits. Larkamp has been in the pits now for 11 minutes. So, Hacker's in the back, Workman's also in the back, among those drivers as well as Tommy Ryan. But Brian Jarzyk all set to bring them back to the green once again. Top 10 driver in the Lionheart Racing Series point standings in the IndyCar. He looks to bring the Ford GTE to the green. Field's back underway. Off and away goes Jarzyk and company.
Jarzyk getting a nice jump over Mikus, who's going to have to worry about James Kahula coming down low. Krahula knows how to get around oval courses, and right now he's going to have a desired line on the low side as they head off into turns 3 and 4. So 18 cars still out here running on the lead lap. Unfortunate about Georgian Zaldo. I thought he got away okay-ish from that incident, but obviously not.
Took a long time to fix even in some cases. And Garen's joining the fun just behind all of this in his pink and black machine with the blue accents.
Well, let's not forget that Garen's carrying a little bit of damage from the very first wreck of this race. So this is proof that A, you can race with a little bit of damage out here, and B, again, if you are going to be in an incident, do it early because you have time to work your way back up to the front. And Dan Garen's done a good job of that. And with, 75 or so laps still left to go, he is in position to fight for the victory.
Last time by 4/10 off the pace of the leader Brian Yazic, but the true test comes to play now in the clean space. 21st was where he started. Remember, only 5 laps of practice prior to today's action, as well had a steering wheel recalibration software update that ended up reducing that practice time beforehand. He's been able to prove once that car's come to him, he's been quick. The problem is Kinsella wants the bottom back, wants to get up to 4th again. Garen way up the racetracks, able to make it stick on the top line to get a run for the first time with momentum.
Oh, Aaron Morgan thought about making it 3 wide down the inside, backed out of it, but that might cost him a position to Ricky Harding, I believe that is on the inside. So 2 by 2 as they go down the back straight. Another 3 wide scenario coming up. Things getting dicey here inside the top 10.
That's Aaron Morgan now diving to the bottom side. Kinsella dives back to the bottom side. Too low, nearly went to the grass. And look who's also joining the party. Mike Rasimus from Nexus Esports now rejoins the party.
A nice little comeback so far from Mike. Also keeping an eye on the battle for the lead. James Kahula has run Yazic down. Right now they're running single file, but the top 2 really have a big gap over 3rd on back.
And already communication amongst the radio was trouble behind. Spin, caution is out. Mike is spun around. Rasmus hard into the wall. Multiple cars flipping in turns 3 and 4. Graf and Fowler also involved in a massive stack up again.
Many drivers there who, that's unfortunate for a lot of them. Rasmus was having a good comeback. Mikas was doing well up towards the front of the field. Graf had finished 2nd at Daytona, so he was hoping for a good points day. I can't really tell from that angle who to blame.
Looked like Garen ended up hitting the back end, and then there was that stack up again, and Rasmus got hit 2-3 times. Look at this. Looked like a mix almost, Samuel, of coming in hot, but also trying to hold the bottom for the car in front.
Yes. A bit of a racing deal. I'm sure there'll be different views on it, and it definitely hurts seeing Rasmus's car upside down there. Fowler, also a fast driver, so unfortunate to see him caught up in that. We have a couple of different strategies going on. Our race leader, Yazic, came into the pits, but Krahula, who was in 2nd, stayed out.
So the number 4 of Krahula rolling the dice. Morgan just pit the last caution, stayed out. Hardin stayed out. Jan Otis, Ryan Lanini, Paulson all stayed out for track position. Kinsella, the first driver out of the pit lane, though. Brian Yazic finishing up his service with a 29.2. Drelling with a 28.4 to finish up their services. The rest of the field getting a lot of damage repair and or just 30 seconds in the pit stalls here. As we approach, slowly but surely, the halfway point of this race, your thoughts on how this plays out, as we have a lucky dog for the first time. That's Ron Hacker, who is the lucky dog to get 2 laps down.
Well, the way things keep going, he might get even more lucky and get back to being 1 lap down and then back on the lead lap. Well, we're not even halfway, and the complexion of this race has changed time after time. We've had different strategies going on, different cars up front, some big wrecks that have pushed the cars back, but then they've been able to work their way back up front. So there's still...
we had a crash under caution. Tyler Graf just hit the wall in 3. 26 just looped it going up the high line and hit the safer barrier again.
Well, he is carrying a lot of damage. I wonder if that's affecting his handling a bit more than what we can tell from the outside. So he's trying to run the field down so that he can get more damage repair, maximize the time he's in the pits getting damage repaired. But unfortunately, he just added more time to that.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot more. Let's put it that way. As he now goes down the lane. Also joining him is Workman, who has been coming down the second time around to try and keep his car clean. Remember, though, he's been involved in one incident with that call. Coming to 70.
Yeah, well, the drivers who are still left in the race are having a lot of fun, but unfortunately, we've lost quite a few. Lionel Callisto, George Gonzaldo, Stephen Larkemp, Matt Taylor. We're less than 20 cars really still left with a shot of winning this thing. But I'm starting to look up and down the scoreboard at some of the names who are still left. Aaron Morgan and Ricky Harden, we haven't talked about them a whole lot, but they're running in second and third. And they're having not only good races so far, but potentially good points days in the championship because they both placed in podium positions at Daytona.
And that brings up the great point, especially since, remember, Graf was the second place car at Daytona. That incident with the wall, trying to get the car damage repaired and getting back to the pit lane, may have just taken him out of the fight with the short 4-round season as we get ready to double him up once again.
Yeah, I don't think it's over for Grafo, especially with the attrition we've been in this race. If he can keep going, he might be able to salvage a top 10 or something.
He's already lost a lap, we can tell you that at least. He's been in the pit boxes now for 1 minute and 23 seconds. 1 to go. Green flag this time by Krahua, Morgan, Hardin, Yun, Otis, Ryan, Lanini, Paulson, Kinsella, Yazik. Round out your top 10. Remember the drivers who pit 9th on back on the scoring pylon. James Krahua was reeling in the race leader by a half a tenth a lap before that caution. Now he gets to have clean air. Pace car is off. Green flag is out.
Yeah, Krahua got a nice restart there. Aaron Morgan comes down low, tries to block Ricky Hardin from getting the low side. Hardin having none of it and goes straight up into second.
Seems almost like we've had a Patriot Fire Cup Series race breakout from 2017 just about, as Aaron Morgan now tries to break out that 1-2 up at the front. Hardin misses the corner though, trying to give space to Morgan as Morgan takes it back.
Morgan heard what you said and he says, no, this is the Lionheart Summer Shootout Series of 2020, the series where I won race 1 and I can win race 2 right now. Aaron Morgan proving to be a bit of a threat, even though James Krahua is currently running away up front.
And Krahua, a very quick driver we've seen in the various different series on the ovals, including in Lionheart. Already has a gap of 0.7 of a second. Hardin still applying the pressure right. Otis also still in the grouping though, as they try and fight right behind. Otis wants to get around that middle car of Hardin though. Hardin backing up a little bit, while the 95 of Otis wants to push forward.
Yeah, well, Otis was leading this race for quite a while before, he came into the pits and made his stop, and now he's survived the carnage so far, slowly working his way back up front. So as long as he can keep it clean, he's going to be a driver who's there at the end.
I think so too at this point. Very impressive driver, one of the top drivers in Lionheart Racing Series competition. Still trying to wait for his marks as he's ran away from 5th on back. By the way, Samuel Tyler Graf has officially DNF'd in the race. He is not coming back on the racetrack.
Yeah, and that's going to put him 17th at best at the end of this thing, so that's not going to be good for him at all in the championship. By the way, the strategy of this race will change next time we have a caution, because with only 14 cars left on the lead lap now, you're putting yourself at much less risk taking a pit stop in the second half of this race. You lose less track position than what you would have done earlier.
Absolutely at this point. Keep in mind that lap traffic may come into play. Never mind. Caution is out. 12, James Paulson. Spun around, and it's Dan Guerin hitting another car. This time it's the red, white, and blue machine spun up the track.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a slide here, nothing too major, but enough to bring out the yellow flag. Although I've said that a couple of times this race, that I thought incidents haven't looked too major, and then we've seen cars sitting in the pits for like 8 minutes getting repairs. I think these guys will get away with that one, though. That's just a little bit of contact, and iRacing throws the yellow as we hit the halfway point.
Coming to lap 63 with 63 laps to go this time by. Will anyone break into the pit lane? We'll take a look. No for most of the front runners. With that, we'll take a step aside. More coverage of the HyperX Summer Series and the HyperX Milwaukee 125. We'll be back in just a moment. You're watching the Global SimRacing Channel for the virtual Milwaukee Mile. Welcome back, everyone, to the Global SimRacing Channel for coverage of the HyperX Summer Series and the HyperX Milwaukee 125 official series, for the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX. 60 to go this time by, and a few interesting tidbits, the first of which, James Grahua trying to burn fuel right now as the leader and try and make that car lighter, Samuel.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean he's done pitting, of course. He might still come in to get tyres later on, but he realises he's got enough fuel to make it to the end, so let's try and burn a little bit under caution here, keep his car light, keep it out front. So far, Grahula's doing well, but still a long way to go. 60 laps left to go as they cross the line, and I think we should see the pace car lights go off here.
I believe so too, as they get ready to double them up. Yes, indeed. 59 to go when we go back on our way. By the way, during the break, Tower Graph clarifying to us via YouTube broadcast communication that he had steering damage in that incident where he slammed hard into the wall, Samuel. And as we've noted and seen many times, if you have steering damage in a GTE car, it's not a fun time on a road course, let alone an oval.
Yeah, no, that's unfortunate for him, but it doesn't change the fact that he's going to come out of today's race with a 17th place finish at best, and that's definitely not looking good in the championship when you consider the likes of Aaron Morgan and Ricky Hardin are still out racing there up towards the front. Here we go, through turns 3 and 4, getting ready to see the green flag once again.
Mike Rasmus also officially DNF. Floorcamp also out of the race. Kalisto is back on the racetrack, though. As of 3 laps ago, after 17 minutes of repairs, may be able to jump those drivers just mentioned. Green flag is out. We're back underway. Krahua with a good jump again.
Yeah, Morgan also gets a good jump. Ricky Hardin does not, so Morgan's not going to have to worry about fending him off for second place in turns 1 and 2. And here we go, top 3 quite spread out down the back straight, but third on back, all bunched up.
Currently, Ricky Hardin watching as he blocks the bottom side into 3 and 4. Lanini was able to get by Ryan Otis on that bottom groove, but both of them missed the bottom groove on the corner exit. Otis trying to shove off Kinsella, who's trying to take advantage of the bottom side near 3 wide into turn 1. All behind Hardin as he tries to run away in his orange and purple machine.
Kinsella starting to use that Tyler Graf line. Oh, him and Otis almost come together on the exit there. There might have been a 0x between them. Otis going to drop back a little bit, cars to his inside now as they go off into turns 3 and 4.
Mostly single file as Adam Young starting to also push for positions back to +8 from his starting position in this line. Otis having to deal with Chris Fowler, though. Brian Yazik also behind, and don't forget about Dan Garrett in this group. By the way, new fastest lap of the race by about nearly a few 100ths of a second. James Krahua 28.421 with the later car in the clean air.
Yeah, burning that fuel, paying dividends for him right now. Ryan Otis, he's been running up front pretty much through most of this race, fading back on the outside lane there, cannot get down low, and I'm sure he'll be coming in for new tyres if we get another yellow. Looks like he might finally have a gap here.
Maybe so. The gap between the leaders 1 second. You see on the screen, not so much gaps. And look who's also charging again after a couple bump and runs. Dan Guerin looking to move back in towards the top 9, but Tom Drilling, he's to the bottom side. One of the top drivers across several different series, looking to take away the bottom groove, move the number 54 inside the top 10.
Yeah, well, 2 drivers having different days there. Tom Draylen, I don't think, has a scratch from his car and has fairly fresh tyres, whereas Dan Guerin is racing around with a wounded automobile. Remember, about 30 laps ago, I mentioned there might be some drivers who were running at the back that we probably would have mentioned until the closing laps. I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Draylen ends up being one of those drivers.
Yeah, it fits his driving style. When you think about it, he likes to keep the car clean and wait until the final third of a race to try and push. We've seen that. Speaking of pushing, you can see this is 2, 3, and 4 pushing each other. Aaron Morgan, Ricky Hardin, Chris Lanini, all lined up in a row. Separated by just a couple car lengths. Their pace about the 28.6s to 28.8s at the moment.
Krahula is really extending the gap over this battle for second. This is all going on almost 1.5 seconds back of a number 4 leading the field around. So Ricky Hardin trying to find a way by Aaron Morgan. I almost wonder if your Krahula is a point where you start backing off a little bit and saving your tyres, as Chris Lanini trying to get up into this battle as well. He's currently in 4th.
Don't forget, Krahula has now been on the track including pace laps, 53 laps this time by. Something to think about as Morgan nearly misses the corner, gives Lanini a chance to think about a dive to the bottom side in turn 1. Lanini wheel hops a little bit. Morgan tries to squeeze. Underneath the curbing goes Lanini, but still has that preferred line for 3 and 4.
Yeah, and these two can afford to battle for a little bit, even if they hold each other up. They've got a nice gap over the battle for 5th place. I think Aaron Morgan is fighting a losing battle here, and he's finally going to settle into 4th. New driver in 5th place behind them, actually, and that is Brian Yazik working his way back up.
And is that no surprise at this point? There's only 0.4 seconds to follow up for a majority of the drivers, and he is matching the lap times of James Krahula, who is up at the front of the field. So if we get an error caution, Yazik might be right in line to fight with Krahula and Hardin up at the front.
Yeah, if Yazik works his way up into 2nd place, it's going to be a bit of bad news for James Krahula, I have a feeling. 28.7 for Yazik that time around, despite having to deal with the dirty air.
Here's a look at that lap comparison specifically, and you can see a few of the past couple laps he's been gaining time of the race leader. Still about 2.5 seconds back, but he has been fairly quick Remember, though, Yazik on a bit fresher tires by about 30 laps.
Yeah, it also could be the case that Krahula's just driving at 95% maybe. I mean, he's got a 2-second lead. Why strain his tyres too much right now? A battle's broken out for 6th place. Andrew Kinsella missed the corner a couple turns ago, and now Adam Young is all over the back of him. Otis there too, as well as Tom Drayling, Chris Fowler and co. And that's a nice little comeback for Chris Fowler. He was involved in the yellow earlier.
Fowler tried the top line. Not able to make it stick as he nearly got contact with Tommy Wright, trying to cut across the nose to the bottom once again. Tom Drayling watching along for the near bump draft. Kinsella blocks down to the bottom side as Otis still trying to clear by Young as Adam Young's tires start to light off, and Kinsella nearly lights up the wall. He's able to avoid it.
Yeah, that's what he did a couple of laps ago, where that kind of put him back into this mess to start with. Another drive up there going way wide. You don't want to be that high up, and he's going to fade all the way to the back of that pack.
Great train effect, to say the very least. Otis with a bit of later art trying to keep Kinsella up the top line. And now we're starting to get towards that wiggly point once again. Cars getting a little loose on entry, and some of them on apex in fights such as this. The more you fight, the more you risk burning up your tires at a short track such as this.
All right, as we continue to watch this battle for 6th place, I'm keeping half an eye on Yazik as well, because he's closing up on Lanini for 3rd. Drag race down the front straight for 6th, though. 8th place car right on their tail.
So drawing big cutoff that time as Brian Yazik is up into the top 3 once again. He's lost a bit of time trying to get around Lanini along with a couple of the other cars, but he's still matching, if not quicker, lap times than the leader, James Krahula. Still, though, may need a bit of luck here with 45 laps to go.
Remember about 30 or so laps ago, we were listing off for drivers with NASCAR experience on iRacing. Weren't Krahula, Hardin, and Yazik part of that list we gave?
Yes.
Now here they are, 1, 2, 3.
In fact, Yazik was a championship contender in some of those series as well when you think back to the last decade.
Oh, we had a big slide over in turns 3 and 4 by Bobby Mikas. He held on to it, got roughed up a little bit by Bart Workman. This could have been another caution, but it wasn't.
And he got loose. Just avoided Dan Guerin. See if we can take a look. Yes, indeed. Here's the GSRC replay. This was nearly 3 cars bunched up again. Great job by Guerin to avoid this as Mikas got loose.
Yeah, he did it all on his own, and I think Guerin and Mikas may have brushed fenders. Workman and... okay, no, he did... with another angle here, there might have actually been contact between Guerin and Mike. No, I think he lost it on his own.
Yeah, he lost it and then locked it up. And then that's where Workman was, though, trying to ride up a higher line as well, it seemed.
Back to live action, 5th place changing hands. Ryan Otis has just gone by Aaron Morgan. Well, Morgan was running much higher up a few laps ago. He's going the wrong direction right now.
See that right now as they're back single file in this grouping. And now they're starting to fall into the 29 flats for some of the first times tonight. Coming to 41 laps to go, and Morgan really starting to fall off. Meanwhile, Tom Drayling, we talked about him potentially saving his stuff. He was the quickest car on the racetrack last time by in this group.
Yeah, the problem for all of them is the gap that Krahula has over the field is 2 seconds, and just ran a faster time than Hardin that time by. Just a little over 40 laps left to go. It will be 40 laps left to go at the line, but things looking in James Krahula's favour right now, and you have to start to wonder if we're going to go green to the end. This is the cleanest run we've had since the start of a race, and of course the field size is only half of what it was back then.
And that brings up a concern, though, Samuel, at least in my head, is if it does go green, can Krahula make sure he doesn't pop the tires here? Because they was estimated they'll last maybe 65 laps, the tires tonight.
Well, we know fuel's not going to be a concern for him because he was burning it under the last yellow. But yeah, tires definitely could be a concern, which is why I'm surprised he's holding a 2-second lead right now. You know, would it be to his advantage to kind of, lay off a little bit. But you know what? James Kahula has a lot more oval experience than me, so I think he knows exactly what he's doing.
By the way, change of hands for second. Yazik was let go by Harden. Also, the battle for ninth is heating up on screen. Fowler now holding up Kinsella right now. Young has been able to cycle back to the bottom here. This is also where Paulson, Workman, and Guerin have now reached within. This group about separate between 2 seconds or so on the racetrack in this line.
I'm always skeptical about criticizing Andrew Kinsella because he's a very good racer. Normally, if he's running the line, you want to try and copy it because he knows what he's doing. But it does seem like he's not using as much of a track as his competition. Sometimes he's coming in at funny angles, and I think that's hurting him a little bit here because here we go. Adam Young and Paulson are all over the back of him.
Yep, and right there loses the bottom again. Lots of space given, and the higher you go up that line, the more momentum you actually lose here. It's not like aero tracks at short tracks, where you can pitch down, get momentum off the corner, be able to pull a little bit more distance on the straightaway. It takes 5-10 laps to pass at Milwaukee Mile. With especially these types of cars, as we've seen, you're side by side, maybe a lap or so by the time that top line really kills that momentum in 3 and 4. If you time it up right on the bottom, Yun nearly timed it up into the door as Kinsella now is able to time up a run.
Well, Yun has the low side here, which has been the preferred lane throughout most of the race, but normally we haven't gone this many laps during the run, so I wonder if the high line will start to pay dividends as the tyres wear a bit more. Oh, Kinsella!
Oh.
No, there he goes!
There he goes! Caution flag is out. And that also collects Paulson once again. And could tell that was coming, Samuel. He was really tight, it seemed, the past couple laps, especially with how he missed the bottom that past lap in past set of corners.
Yeah, I think he thought he was clear, and he wasn't. But then also, as you mentioned, the car behind Kinsella drifted up a little bit, got into him there. Kinsella making some contact with the wall. I think strategy's gone out the window here, Justin. I think everyone's coming in for 4 tyres because we've been on these tyres for quite a while.
See many of these drivers too, Samuel, come down to the pit lane. By the way, over the radio, not a surprise, James Carroll was asking for a caution flag 5 laps ago. He got his wish. As we're about to see how these drivers play it out. Remember, if you don't add the fuel, it can potentially have a shorter pit stop here. We've seen 14, 15-second pit stops tonight.
All right, they're all coming in. Now, fuel shouldn't be a concern for any of them, so this is all going to be for tyres. A couple cars at the back there staying out, but those might be lapped cars who aren't allowed to pit yet. I can't imagine there's any advantage to doing rears only or fronts only or right sides or left sides. I think it's all going to be 4 tyres.
Has to be, especially with some of these drivers, as much as 61 laps on some of their stints. Should note that Bob Mikus did not hit that time by. He's only on 30 lap-old tires this time. As first man off the pit lane, it's Krahula, 15.5, Yazik second. Otis with a good stop, 14.2 to get to third. While Morgan and Yun round out the top 5 of the race off pit road. Workman with a great stop as well to get in front of him. Everybody else taking a much longer stop, adding a bit more fuel into the tank. 28, 29-second stops for everyone else in the lane. Curious though on the decision for the car in front of Krahula. The 43 of Micah stayed out that time by. Curious if he ends up coming down to the pit lane eventually, or if he tries to stay out on the older tires for, again, the track position, and doesn't come down again because it worked before in the mid-race.
Bob Mikus is no stranger to being a wild card on strategy, but I'm sure James Kahula isn't his biggest fan right now because this is going to push James Kahula up into the high side on the restart, and that could, open the bottom lane there for Brian Yazik to maybe make the move for the leader of the cars on new tyres. I just don't see this working for Bobby. I mean, I don't see it working for the win. Maybe he'll end up getting a better finish than what he would have done had he came in for tyres with everybody else. But you know what? I don't think he exactly had the great finish at the Daytona Road. I can't recall actually. Yeah, he was at Daytona Road. So you know what? Why not? He's
No, he
not.
wasn't actually.
Oh no, he wasn't. Okay, he's not fighting for the championship then. So why not go for the win?
Yeah, why not? They are having a lot of fun, by the way, on the radio, talking about having nice, fun call-outs for restarts. 30 to go this time, about 29 laps to go and get under green. Once again, to recap your top 10, Micah Skorhua, Jacek and Otis, Morgan and Yun, Workman and Hardin, Tom Drelling and Lanini, rounding out your top 10 on the racetrack. Based on how this race has flowed out, this is probably going to be a difficult question to answer. Who's your favorite at this point?
Jacek, because I think, I'll change my mind if Krahula gets a really good restart. But right now, I think Jacek is in prime position to get on the inside of Krahula on this restart and then beat Mikas with these fresher tires.
I'm keeping my eye too, honestly, on Krahula in this fight as well. They've been near even on pace almost, it seems, but Krahula's been better on the short runs, on fresher tires throughout this night, especially on Apex, it seemed.
I don't think we've seen wheel spin be a huge issue on restarts.
Nope.
Yeah, that's one slight concern here when you come to these oval tracks that have walls on both sides on the front straight, that if Mikas does mess it up, we could end up with a wad of cars into turn one. But I don't think we've seen that being an issue so far tonight. So I think Mikas should be able to get a nice little jump on the field. I'm just not sure if it will last.
Let's get in one to go this time by. So we get all set to go. 14 cars in the lead lap. The lucky dog was Ron Hacker. He needs just one more caution, folks, to get back in the lead lap. See if he gets some luck. It's now marking 30 to go for the pace car. 29 to go for everybody else. All set to go. Mike is in control of the field. He's had to do a lot of bumping and banging. He's been bumped along in the 43. The penny blue and red machine on the inside. Krahula in the lime yellow machine. On the outside line, pace cars off, away we go once more. 29 to go in the HyperX Milwaukee 125.
Krahula got the jump over Jacek. That's exactly what I needed, and now I think Krahula is your favourite. But let's see, Krahula kind of dived it in, trying to get underneath Mikas in turn one there. That might have set Jacek up for a better run down the back straight. Krahula's going to block him down the inside as they head off into turn three. Now let's see if Jacek can attempt some kind of crossover. He's gone high on the entry of three, going to try and cut down low onto the front straight.
Lost momentum for Krahula, trying to hug that bottom side. Really tried to break the draft a little bit. Here comes Jacek to the bottom groove. Trying to work up the top line as Krahula gives a bit of a squeeze. Mike is running away from all of this as they're side by side down the back straightaway. Jacek, a little bit of RG push for the race lead. Down the front straightaway, 27 to go. Krahula gives the bump draft to Mikas. Jacek back to the point.
And here comes Ryan Otis now down on the low side. But Mikas cannot get down low. Krahula is stuck up high behind Mikas. He's dropped all the way back to fourth. And that has opened the door for Ryan Otis to take second. But they're going three wide for second place. This is just allowing Brian Jacek to run off into the sunset.
This is exactly what Jacek wanted to see in his rearview mirror. A fight and a scramble for second on back. Now it's side by side between Krahula and Otis. All while Morgan and Hardin are also joining that scrap. This is the worst nightmare for James Krahula, who still can't get to the bottom in all of this. Still stuck in the right rear tire of the car beside him.
Yeah, he's racing hard for Ryan Otis for second place here. I don't know if this is the best strategy. It's just allowing Jacek to run away with the lead. These two drivers both, I'm sure they both want to run single file, but they're having a disagreement over who they want to have in second and who wants to be in third.
This has also allowed Jacek to set the fastest time of the race, by the way, by a full tenth of a second, a 28.306. So all of this is holding these drivers up to 0.3 of a second on the fresher tires. That is massive at a track such as this.
Yeah, these two, I mean, they're racers, so they want to race hard. They want to be in front. but I'm just not sure this is worth it. You know, it's just hurting them in the long run against Yazik. Not only are they losing time, but they're burning off their tires. Otis finally gets ahead, but now Krahula's going to try and cut underneath him, and he's going to try and go to the inside in turns 3 and 4. Let's see if he's able to pull off this move any easier than what Otis was able to do with his. They're going to be side by side down the front straight. Wow, Krahula, I was about to say that he just blasted by Otis, but it's not the case. Otis has gone nice run down the front straight.
Like I said, faster on the apex for this race is James Krahula in this car. That times up the exit well enough. He's clear for second, but the damage is done. 1.2 seconds behind. Otis trying to go to the bottom, blocked off by Krahula. He tries the top line as here comes Aaron Morgan again, fighting for a podium position. Hardin's in the fight. Adam Young, where did he come from? Is back up to the front as well with Lanini.
And there's a yellow.
Dan Guerin and, pardon me, I think Workman and Guerin might have been tangled up here. Yes, there's Workman and towards the barrels. Guerin was slow on the track.
I anticipate all of the leaders staying out. Here we go. Here's a replay of what happened.
And watch for the corner exit. You'll see a wild Guerin pop up in 3, 2, 1. That spin is enough to trigger the yellow.
Yeah, and you're lucky he didn't slide into the tyre barriers right there. I think he got off okay, without too much damage, and since they're at the back, they'll be able to come in for a set of fresh tyres anyhow.
Yeah, unlimited tire sets available for this race tonight. So we'll see if they elect to take those fresher tires. It'll only be about 10 laps difference on green flag laps, give or take, with 20 to go. But this was a saving grace for Krahula. He lost a lot of time trying to get up to second. Now, he gets to have fun with his friend up towards the front here for this race win, potentially.
I'm very curious. Oh, as we do have some cars coming into the pits, but their cars to be at the back, so that's to be expected. I'm curious to see if Lionheart in the future, for its All-Star race and for Summer Series, starts to do something like limited sets of tires. I don't know if we'll bring that directly into the official IndyCar, the Lionheart IndyCar Series, without testing it in its lower divisions or Fun Series first. But that is something I'm curious to see if we'll do down the road.
Absolutely. There has been talk, should know, as talked about on the IR download this past weekend, of potential future series, a lot of future developments for Lionheart Racing Series. Let's put it at that, for 2021 and beyond. On the bright side, if you're a Ron Hacker fan, he's on the lead lap, and with this caution, also passes by Dan Guerin and will line up alone in 15th position on the racetrack. Kinsella's still off the racetrack, by the way. Only one car can pass him at the moment. George Anzardo is still chugging along after getting that 8 minutes required damage repaired in about 17th and can pass up to 16th this time by.
I'd like to know if there's actually a rule on whether the leader in this series, because we don't normally have double file restarts in Lionheart, whether the leader can elect to choose what lane they start on the restarts. But there's no reason why Yazik would elect to start high here. Yeah, the low side is definitely where you want to be. The big question, once again, is what's better for the restart here, second or third place? Krahula will be starting second on the outside, Otis on the inside in third. We could end up with these two battling hard for second once again, and I'm sure Brian Yazik will be a big fan of that.
Absolutely here, and don't forget about Morgan and Hardin, who are very quick right now. Yun also extremely quick at the end of that run. Might be able to show something here. I think this is going to be absolutely entertaining at this point. At this point now, if you are, say, Yazik or Krahula outside that grouping rather, say deep, saying sixth on back, how do you get yourself back into this conversation? Because remember, that's where Tommy Ryan, Tom Durrelling, and Dan Guerin and company are deep in the field at the moment at.
I think you want the low line. That there hasn't been any point today where I've really thought as a spectator that the high lane has been a good place to be. So I'm sure the driver's up high. I mean, the line is good enough where you can fight hard to, race the guy on your inside. And we've had some great battles throughout today's race, seeing that happen. But I think at the end of the day, if you do want to get up front, I think the low line's the easiest way to do that. So that's good news for the likes of Jarzik, Otis, Hardin, Lanini, and Tommy Ryan, who, of course, was our pole sitter today.
Remember, was involved in an incident in the early parts of the race. After going in for his pit stop, he's been able to get up to P9, expecting to double them up this time by. We're 16 laps to go in the HyperX Milwaukee 125.
Yes,
Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we'll be 16 to go when we go back green. I think that's enough time for another caution, maybe 2.
I think so too, as well, as the way they'll line up: Jarzik and Grahua, Otis and Morgan, Hardin and Young, Lanini and Fowler, Ryan and Paulson rounding out your top 10. Micah, Strelling, Guerin, Workman, Hacker all on the lead lap. And Zardo there to pick up the pieces if anyone ends up DNFing in a one-lap incident. He is 15 laps down at the moment. So get your popcorn out, folks, if you haven't popped a bunch of bags already today. With how exciting this race has been this evening, the two friends ready to lead them back to the green flag to determine who can win the second race of the HyperX Summer Series, part of the Lionheart Racing Series, and its organizations and championships. Green flag is out. Grahua nearly timed it up perfectly already to the bottom.
Yeah, he went just a tiny bit too early. He anticipated a tiny bit too much, had to back off, and that allowed Jarzik to go ahead. But Grahula is right on his back. Otis hasn't got a good restart at all. He's fighting more than hard for 3rd and 4th positions. But Grahula's all over the back of Jarzik. Now, I think Jarzik will have a tyre advantage, because remember how hard Grahula had to race for 2nd under the last run. He's going up high here, but Jarzik's got a nice run down the front straight. But the battle is still on with 15 to go. Here comes Grahula.
James Grahua deep to the inside. Brian Jarzik gives him the space. Grahua using the apex speed once again. The 55 rides up to the safer barrier. James Grahua looking to take back the race lead once again. Was quicker off the gun. He dives it hard to the inside of the preferred line. Move Grahua up to the race lead with 14 to go.
Yeah, I'm very surprised we saw Grahula take that so easily. I thought with the clean air and not having to race anyone else that Jarzik was going to have a big tyre advantage, but Grahula seems to have a pace or has something figured out that Jarzik doesn't right now. And that number 4 car has been leading a lot of the second half of this race, and at this rate he could very well be leading lap 125.
Absolutely, but still, there's a lot which can happen in a race such as this. It's still separated by about 3-4 car lengths with 13 to go at the stripe. Ryan Otis also within range of these cars. Grahua just set his fastest lap personally of the race. A couple 100s off Jarzik's time at 28.322. He nearly hit the wall though down the back straightaway.
I think Jarzik did hit the wall. Grahula almost hit it. I think Jarzik did pancake it a little bit, and Ryan Otis would have seen that, so that will be, a little bit of blood in the water for him.
Yes, indeed, Jarzik did scrape the wall and damage a slight touch of the right front fender, but as we've seen, you can get away with that here at the Milwaukee Mile. The top 3 have ran away from the rest of the field by about a half a second already, with 4 from back, still fighting for position.
So we're coming to 11 laps left to go. Grahula holding down about a half-second lead over Jarzik, and Jarzik doesn't seem to be making any inroads. We saw Grahula had a good long-run pace going earlier on. Remember, he had like 50 laps on his tyres and was holding the 2-second lead earlier on. Laps car down on the apron. Hopefully that's not a distraction for them too much.
Yes, that's Workman who had to come out of the pit lane. Minute and 5 seconds repairs and black flags to serve for him as he stayed on the low side, right behind the race leaders, and just bunched up a lot of cars now up to the top line. As the car you seen drifting up to the wall, that's going to potentially hold up everyone else with 10 laps to go this time by.
Yeah, Workman hasn't really came out of pit road in the best place here. He's just going to have to let all these guys by and hopefully doesn't affect our lead lap battles too much. Jarzik has run down Krahula. That wasn't affected by the lap car of Workman at all. He's just been able to do it on his own. And within 10 laps left to go, there's less than half a second between our two leaders right now.
So the gap that Jarzik lost in regards to Krahula is reeled back in after scraping the wall. He was quicker once again last time by. They've also ditched Ryan Otis. Otis hit the curb behind them to lose an extra 3 car lengths already. This has now turned into a 2-car scrap for the final 8 laps to determine the winner of the HyperX Milwaukee 125. Bit more lost time for Jarzik though, off the corner exit, back to 4/10.
So 8 miles left to go here at the Milwaukee Mile. Less than half a minute a lap. This will be over in 4 minutes if it stays green. A lot can happen in those 4 minutes. Can Jarzik catch Krahula? He seems to be stuck there about 4/10 back. I wonder if the dirty air is affecting him at all, trying to follow Krahula's car. Of course, the low line being the only lane around, you can't really change your lane too much to try and find clean air out there.
Absolutely at this point, and it definitely can be a factor. Remember, it's come into play in some road course events, especially in this year on the iRacing service. Looking like it's coming into play right now for these 4 GTEs. A 10th loss last time by nearly by Jarzik. Full 10th completely by Otis last time by. Now 6 to go. Keep in mind, if there was a caution, this could get interesting for how this could play out to the finish.
Jarzik is starting to run slightly different lanes to Krahula. Not too much, but every now and then he's taken the turn a bit narrower or a bit wider than Krahula. I mean, they're still both using the low line, but, you know, they're experimenting. I saw Krahula using the apron in turns 1 and 2 this time by. Let's see, the gap was 0.047 last lap around. This lap, I think they ran identical lap times.
Yes, indeed they did, as they got the high five from Barney the Flagman. By the way, P4, Ricky Harden wants that position, and wants it quickly. Nearly pushed up and towards the Wisconsin State Fair logos along the backstretch, but might have a shot and trying to get around the 48 for this position.
Yeah, well, these are 2 drivers doing very well in the points. So, I mean, there's big championship implications here in this battle for 4th place.
And Harden nearly gave him the bump and run, trying to dive to the inside. Hard checkup for Ricky Harden. 3.5 laps to go as Morgan still trying to hold on and gain points on Harden and company. Oh, wow, the leaders continue to set sail away, coming to 3 to go.
Yeah, things looking to be in James Krahula's favor right now. He's extended that gap to over half a second. I think he would have to make quite a bit of a mistake for Jarzik to get it, and a caution would end the race.
Yes, indeed, with it being under 3 laps to go past the point of no return, the leaders still separate by 0.35 seconds to 0.4 of a second. Krahula coming to 2 laps to go this time by what has been a dominant second half of this race today here at the Milwaukee Mile. Only 2 more miles to determine who will take the checkered.
Well, Krahula's my teammate over in the SimRacing Merch Esports team in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, so I think I might need to be picking his brain for some pointers after this one, because this has been a pretty dominant performance, actually, in the second half of this race. He's just had the field behind him, and here we go, coming to the white flag. I think he doesn't have that much to worry about.
Race is official for the HyperX Milwaukee 125. James Krahula has put on a clinic. Lionheart Racing Series competitor, very strong on the ovals in multiple different disciplines. Today in his Ford GTE, he showed he was one of the quickest cars all day, was the quickest on the long runs, and in the second half of the race, he'll take the checkered flag. James Krahula wins the HyperX Milwaukee 125.
Jarzik second, Otis third, Morgan fourth, and Hardin fifth. But what about Tom Draylen? We kept mentioning that we thought he would be up there at the end. He comes home in 6th place.
What a job by him to get up towards the front, but what a job by Krahua and Yazik. The two kings of the fields, it seemed, today here, Samuel. Very quick cars, and a bit of a congratulation bump from Ricky Harden, who also still got that top 5, as you mentioned.
Yeah, well, Morgan won Daytona Road and got a 4th place finish here today. So I think he'll went to the second half of this short season as our points leader. But man, things are going to be very interesting. We're starting to see some drivers have the knack of this Ford GT a bit more than their competitors, and very much looking forward to the final 2 rounds.
And James Krahua setting up to do a Polish victory lap as he gets ready to celebrate and wave to all the fans, virtual and all. A full grandstand for today, linking lights and excitement. James Krahua is the winner of the HyperX Milwaukee 125 here on the Global SimRacing Channel, and what was an exciting edition of the Lionheart Racing Series' HyperX Summer Series. Krahua ready to burn down the house. He wins the second round of the season. Post-race coverage coming up in just a moment. You're watching the Global SimRacing Channel for the virtual Milwaukee Mile.
I'm back.
And we're back as well for the HyperX Summer Series second round at the Milwaukee Mile for an exciting edition of the series for the HyperX Milwaukee 125 and the HyperX Post-Race Show. Lionheart's Racing Series is powered by HyperX. Whether you're trying to claw your way to the top of the podium, it pays to have an ultra-comfortable, high-quality headset that gives you the audio information you need to grab that checker flag. From high-performance DRAM and SSDs, outstanding microphones, accurate mics, responsive keyboards, to their legendary cloud line of gaming headsets, HyperX makes the gaming gear you need to see. Casual or pro, no matter your cred, color, or culture, we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Use the promo code LionHRT15 at HyperXGaming.com. Once again, LionHRT15 at HyperXGaming.com. One man gets to celebrate tonight. The great John Kalachi on social media gets to burn it down today. He wins the second race in the history of the HyperX Summer Series. Brian Yazik comes home in second, with Ryan Otis rounding out your top three. Aaron Morgan comes home in 4th. Only took 2 tires on the strategy call with that shorter pit stop. So did Ricky Harden with the top 5. Tom Drelling in P6. Tommy Ryan recovered from an earlier incident to get up to 7th. Lanini comes home quietly in 8th. Dan Guerin charged up from 21st to 9th. Chris Fowler rounding up the top 10 Samuel.
Yep, and in 11th position was Bob Mikas. He had a bit of a rough race, but brought it home. Adam Young comes home in 12th place ahead of James Paulson and Ron Hacker, rounding out the cars left on the lead lap. Bart Workman went down a few laps late on. He finishes 15th. And then we come to the casualties of the race. George Gonzaldo 16th, Andrew Kinsella 17th, Lionel Callisto 18th, Tyler Graf 19th, and Mike Razamas 20th. Outside the top 20 are Larkemp, Taylor, Jenkins, and Gantry.
Again, that's a look at your running order. DNFs from about 17th on back. What a race, though, for one man who took home the checker flag in what was a dominant long run, mid run, short run car. It seemed all evening. James Grahula, your winner in the HyperX Summer Series. How does it feel?
Holy cow. Who would have thought that Milwaukee would have put on the type of race that we had, that we were actually able to pass? And just that was absolutely incredible. George is a madman to thinking that this track would work and put on the type of race that we had. And holy cow, that was so much freaking fun.
How was it trying to balance out the strategy calls throughout this race as well as trying to wheel this car around the racetrack?
So early on, I thought that I made a mistake taking 4 tires on the first pit stop. But then we were just so much better than everyone else with passing. And I was like, okay, then 4 tires has got to be the play. And I thought that we were going to hold off and everything there. We're going to have that long green flag to kind of end it. But then we had that yellow. And I was more worried than at that point about having to try and pass Brian than I was trying to hold him off. So I took 2 tires for the first time. And the car handled horrible. I thought that I had screwed up. I saw Ricky, he had taken 4 and he was moving up through the field. So I thought that I had screwed up the play. But somehow it wound up working. I don't know how, but we'll take the victory anyway.
Indeed, the next race goes to the road courses for its final time of this 4-round series. Road America is that selected racetrack. Your thoughts on the circuit?
I mean, Road America is one of the best racetracks in the country. Running Daytona was so much fun, 2 weeks ago, and I can't wait to go to Road America. And if you thought that this was a crazy race, wait till we get to Indy on the oval. That's the one I'm really looking forward to. We'll do okay at Road America. We're pretty decent at that track. I think that we're good for a top 10 there. But man, wait till we get to Indy. This is going to be crazy. Man, thank HyperX so much for putting on this series. This iRock style series has been I've had so much fun here these first 2 weeks, and we're not even halfway through. So, well, now we're halfway through. I don't know what I'm talking about, but
Yeah.
This has been absolutely great. I can't thank HyperX. I can't thank Lionheart enough for putting this on. This has been so much freaking fun. This has been absolutely great.
Congratulations once again on the victory tonight, James.
Thank you so much, Justin.
James Grahula with the victory not only gets his first of the summer series, but he jumps to second in the point standings. The car who finished in second is with Samuel Ryman. That is Brian Yasek.
Yeah, Brian, a good race for you tonight, but not a great one. What made the difference at the end there with Grahula getting the win and you bringing home the silver?
Well, Sam, the biggest part was just it got tight on me for some reason on that final run, and I felt it coming. We kind of had that lead off the restart, and then they wrecked, and that kind of doomed us from there. And once James got clear, I knew it was over. So we tried a couple things, but the car just wouldn't rotate on us. But all in all, pretty solid effort for kind of rolling in right at practice with the first laps of it.
Now, Grahula, who won, yourself in second, Ricky Hardin down in 5th place, Tommy Ryan in 7th place. You're all drivers who I know have had a lot of NASCAR and various oval experience here on iRacing. How much does that help? How much did that prepare you for what you were up against tonight, or was this something completely different?
It was kind of a little bit of everything, Sam. I was talking under one of the cautions that the car really kind of drove like a late model for some reason, just the way that you could really sling it in there and have a lot of fun with it. But you know, I mean, obviously it didn't hurt, but having run a lot of laps around here, I like this track a lot. And the car just kind of suited the driving style, and the track was happy. So wish we would have been one more step up, but hey, sometimes that happens in these big league pretend auto racing.
Well, you like this track. What about Road America and Indianapolis? You like those circuits?
Yeah, both of them are strong suits of mine. It just kind of depends on the schedule and how that's going to shake out. Because I know those are in September, and we got some stuff going on, so we may or may not make it, but we'll definitely give it a try. And if we do, we'll try and get one more step up the podium.
All right. Well, thanks for coming out tonight, Brian. Thanks for coming to talk to us. Anything else you'd like to say before we let you go?
No, real quick, shout out to HyperX, George Anzaldo, Lionheart, everybody that puts this deal on. My sponsor, HPP Simulation, Clipping That Apex, Thumbs Up, Cancer Down. A lot of good people that we've got with us. So, and shout out to you guys for putting on a great show.
All right, that was Brian Jarzik, your second place finisher here tonight at the Milwaukee Mile. One more drive on the podium, Justin, and you've caught up with him.
Yes, indeed. It's Ryan Otis, who came home in P3, started in 4th, stayed up at the front much of the race, led 21 laps, in fact. Ryan, do you have a copy, sir?
Yep, I gotcha.
Ryan, first things first, how are you feeling about this podium finish tonight in what was a very unique experience for something a lot of people didn't expect to know what to expect tonight?
Yeah. I mean, this is a unique combo for sure. I did one of the practice races earlier in the week, and I kind of the one thing I learned from that is that you really got to protect the right front tire, and so that was what I was trying to do. And I only took right side tires for the whole race, which on the long run it felt okay, but right off of restarts, boy, it was tough to get that thing to turn. So I guess a little lesson learned there, but I'm pretty happy to come home in third. A good recovery from the last race where I had a little bit of bad luck, but yeah, it was good fun. I'm happy with how it turned out.
An interesting discussion brought up among some of the drivers who are watching this post-race coverage as well was the decision between 2 tires, 4 tires, fuel or no fuel. What was the strategy calls like for you while in the cockpit trying to determine, okay, how can I get this track position?
Yeah, that was super tough. So I guess the unique thing about this car is that they, the GTE cars in general, is that they change 1 tire at a time, and they don't change tires while they're fueling. So it really affects your pit stop time. So I stayed out early, and then on the first stop, I took the fuel I needed for the finish, and then took right sides. And then the stop later on, I just took right sides again. So I was trying. I was just trying to minimize the amount of time in the pits, especially on that second stop under caution, which I kind of thought it was going to be the last one, but there ended up being another late caution. But yeah, it was, trying to understand, what it was going to do to the handling of the car. That was probably the biggest, really the biggest question mark in my mind is, you take right sides under caution, and then you come back around for a green flag, and you just have no idea what the car is going to do. So that made the first laps after restarts pretty hairy for sure. It was definitely a wild ride, but everybody drove super great. Everybody was super clean. I don't know how long I had going side by side, but I think Aaron Morgan there for lap after lap after lap, and neither of us could get an edge. That was a great fun.
Looked indeed like that. Couple races to go in September. Road America, Indianapolis Oval. Your top 5 in the points after 2 rounds. What's your focus like for those 2 rounds?
I'm looking forward to Indy. I feel like I can hopefully make a few spots up. I didn't Daytona, but I'm definitely more inclined to like the road courses. So that's definitely high on my list. I think it'll be great fun.
Who do you want to thank for your podium finish tonight?
Well, I definitely got to thank HyperX for putting on this series because I think it's genius. Just the whole format and everything, and mixing up ovals with GTE cars. I think that's just cool. And then I got to thank my spotter Sam. It's his birthday today. He just turned 10, so he's helping me out here. So it's been great fun.
Happy birthday once again to your spotter tonight. Congratulations on the podium.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Once again, Ryan Otis coming home in P3 is now 4th in the point standings. And unofficial point standings, in fact, official, are all sorted on Lionheart's website. Morgan still has the points lead. Rahul 13 points back after tonight. Hardin, Otis, and Graf, your top 5 after tonight's race. Your thoughts, Samuel, as we reach the halfway point of this championship?
Yeah, nice to hear that Tyler Graf is still holding on to 5th in the points after his poor result tonight. But, I mean, it's been an interesting first couple of opening rounds. We've definitely seen 2 races where we didn't know what to expect, and we saw the unexpected. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens at Road America and Indianapolis too.
And let's talk a little bit about that next race at Road America. It's more towards the standard of what you expect these cars to drive with, but for some of these drivers, they may have a tricky one depending on how the conditions are and their experience in this car. Your thoughts on Road America?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's a bit more of a traditional road course, especially compared to the Daytona road course where you have the big drafting battles. But you do get big drafting battles at Road America too. It's a nice road course in terms of a bit of unpredictability, because you have the long straights where you can get good slipstreams on your competitors, and also plenty of overtaking opportunities there. Turn 1, turn 5, and Canada corner, turns such as that. So we're going to be in for a good race. And even though, yes, maybe the cars belong on Road America, let's not forget that we have the old heat race format as well, and that definitely provided some excitement at Daytona.
Absolutely, some very intense races if you think back to Daytona a couple weeks ago, but it was an intense and fun race. The drivers enjoyed themselves. We hope you enjoyed yourselves watching along to it tonight's coverage. First, we'd like to thank the many sponsors a part of the Lionheart Racing Series you see on your screen, including the Lionheart IndyCar Series' its title sponsor, First Medical Equipment. They've been the source for medical supplies and equipment in the Burlington, Iowa area for years because of their superior commitment to provide the absolute best in product quality and customer service, as well as sponsors such as the title sponsor for this campaign, HyperX. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. Use the promo code, once again, LIONHRT15 at HyperXGaming.com. That's LionHRT15 at HyperXGaming.com. To contact any of the sponsors you see on the screen, go to LionheartRacingSeries.com. We'd also like to thank the many sponsors which take part in the software and hardware for our broadcast listed up on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides the wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the great team today and Samuel and Sean. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including the upcoming races, you can find it at Global SimRacingChannel.com. To help support the channel, check the merchandise for sale at gsrc.stormvy.com, or check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so you don't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. As talked about, the next race on the campaign for the HyperX Summer Series heads to Road America. It was an exciting one at the Milwaukee Mile, but in mid-September, these drivers will go back to the road course for the second to last race of the campaign. Coverage will start at 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time. We also have upcoming races for other series listed up on your screen, so be sure to check those out as well and mark them down on your calendar. But, once again, 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, September the 13th is when you can see that next race for this series. It was an intense one, to say the very least. We'll hope to see you at Road America. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.